thanks for joining our 7th session for Holding Hands. So today's topic, it is about child development and what ages mean in practical situations. And today's guest speaker is Jolene, who is from the Engaging Families Wyndham program. She is a social worker and has been working with families for over 5 years, but I'll hand it over to her so she can talk a bit more about it. Go ahead, Jolene.
Okay. Hi, thanks for having me here today. So I'm Jolene. I'm from the Engaging Wyndham Families program at Catholic Care. And my role is I'm a case manager and I work with families with children between 0 to 16. And we mostly provide parenting support and I guess just addressing concerns around things like school engagement and information around services in the local area. So so today I'll be talking about children's brain development and what that means in terms of their behavior, their day-to-day presentation, and how to manage some of that. So before we kind of really go into it, could we kind of go around the screen and just introduce yourself and the children that you have, what ages they are?
Go ahead, everyone. Like what ages kids you have, one by one. Let's start with you, Parul. How old is your son? Okay, I forgot. I think
my son is 3 years and 8 months.
yes, 3 years. And Niti, how old is Jainu and Nietzsche?
I had 2 kids. So one is 2.5, a toddler, and another is a newborn baby. So he's like no longer a newborn. He's going to be 8 months next month.
Yeah. Neha?
Yeah, my son is like 3 years and 8 months.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Auntie's gone. Nita, Auntie, are you still there? Yes. You have grandchildren, right? How old are they?
Means?
आपकी granddaughter है ना, पोती या दोती?
हाँ, granddaughter.
कितने साल के दोनों?
She is around 10.
10. Yeah, you have one granddaughter, yeah?
One granddaughter, मतलब means beti's daughter and 2 sons' daughter.
अच्छा, वो कितने साल के?
Granddaughters. One is 10 plus. और second is 3.
Okay, cool. और आंटी अगर आपको बीच में कुछ समझ ना आए ना तो मुझे like just jump in कर लेना ताकि हम आपको translate कर दे, ठीक है? तो don't, ठीक है? No issue.
Okay.
That's all right. All right. Continue, Jolene.
Okay, so we have a little bit. So most of them are around the 3 years, kind of toddler ages, which is good. That's somewhat the focus of this as well. Okay. So
yes, we do generally have more women. I think they'll probably be joining later, but yeah, generally the age group is from like 2 to 5, or I don't think anyone that's joined that's in school. I'm not sure. Yeah, but it's mostly like that younger ages. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. So thanks for that, everyone. I'm gonna start sharing a screen. I've got some presentation slides that will kind of help with some of this. Okay.
Awesome. We love presentations.
Okay, give me 3 seconds. It's not working.
That's okay, take your time.
Sorry, which ones are you seeing?
Yep.
Is it the presentation slides or
Yep.
the ones with the notes?
It says from the bottom up, it's a presentation slide.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so first off, I guess we'll start with children's brains and how they develop. So as you can see from the screen, children's brains, they develop from the bottom up. Okay. If we could all do a little bit of an exercise here. So if everyone could put your hand up like that. Okay, if you put your thumb in the middle of your palm and you curl your fingers over the top, what you have here is pretty much a personal model of the brain. So the face is the front here of the knuckles, and the back of the head is towards the back of your hand. Okay, so the wrist here represents the spinal cord on which your hand sits. And if you lift up your fingers and raise your thumb here, you see the inner brainstem represented in the palm of your hand. Okay, and this brainstem, it's the area that is that develops first. It's the area responsible for things like breathing and your heart rate and all of that. So babies are born with this already developed. Okay, and the cerebellum. Sorry, give me a minute. It seems to have gone to the next slide without me knowing. Sorry.
That's it.
Okay. Yeah. So connected to the brainstem is the cerebellum, and this includes the motor area of the brain, and it's responsible for things like movement and development over the first few years of life. So as your babies grow, you kind of see development in this area through them kind of being able to lift their head, learning to crawl, learning to walk, and as they develop, it's also things like, you know, learning to eat with cutlery or running, kicking a ball, things like that. Okay. Now, if you place your thumb back down, what you have here is the approximate location of the limbic system in the brain. What this area is, it's pretty much the emotional center of the brain. It rules your child's life basically up to the point where they're 4. So that's most of your kids. At this age, this is what's driving a lot of their behaviors. It also goes through rapid development, and that's why you see a lot of behaviors that can kind of seem irrational at times, like, where's this behavior coming from? Why, you know, this just doesn't make sense. That's because the limbic system is what's driving their responses to you. And this is also because the cortex, which is the next part, when you curl your fingers over the top, that's the cortex. It has not developed yet. The cortex is what is the thinking center of your brain. It's the part of the brain that drives rational thought, thinking before acting. So until the age of 4, this doesn't actually develop. So children don't actually have the capacity per se to kind of think about what they're doing or kind of process how they are feeling before they actually act on it. So up to about 4 years of age, what essentially happens is, I feel this, I act on it. I don't think about whether or not you know, it's okay or not, because that rational thought process hasn't kind of kicked in for them yet, and that's why they need parents to kind of assist them with that. Okay.
I guess just to jump in, sorry, Jolene, that's why kids who are like not until they go to school, they have a lot of tantrums, right? Because
Pretty much.
because they're so regulated by their emotions. Yeah.
It's not that they're doing it on purpose. They're not trying to drive it. They literally just can't, because that part of their brain just hasn't developed yet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then apart from the bottom up, there's also the left and right development of the brain. Okay, so the right side is the more emotional, non-verbal, kind of you know, social interaction and reading into things like body language. So that side is the right side of the brain, and that develops from birth to 2 years old, and then again between 4 to 6 and 8 and 10. And then the left side of the brain, which looks at things like language, numbers, kind of more logical thought processes, that's between 2 to 4, and then 6 and 8. And you kind of see that at certain ages when you kind of go, oh, suddenly they're learning so many more words. You know, suddenly they are a lot more articulate. That's because that side of the brain is kind of developing at that point where you see the more rapid development. Okay. So, you know, how do children learn new things then? So if you kind of look at the slides, when children are first born, they have quite a lot of brain cells, but they're not connected as of yet. So that's represented by that first picture you see there. And what happens is there are neurons. These are wires that connect the brain cells. And as children experience new things, the brain cells then get connected by the neurons, and the connections grow stronger, and they learn messages about themselves, their relationships, and the world around them. And the more connections are made, the more they learn, the more messages that they receive. Okay, that's why routine, structure, and guidance is really important for children, through quality interaction and time with parents, because that's how those neurons get formed, that's how they get strengthened, and that's how they retain that information, which forms kind of a bit of a map for their life. Yeah, and a lot of this happens in the early years. That's why there's such a focus on early intervention and early connection between parent and child. Not that the later years are not important, it's just a lot of that connection is formed at the very early stages of the children's life.
I think that's why it's when kids experience something really difficult in a young age, like some sort of trauma or bad experience, it kind of stays with them because they've formed that connection, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
But the thing about the brain as well is it's very resilient. Things that are learned as in the younger years with good support, with good structure, it can be relearned or remapped. And that's why, we always say, young kids seem to bounce back quick from things. It's partly because of that. Yeah.
It's a good point. Yeah.
Okay. Let me know if I'm going too fast, by the way, guys. I'll slow down.
Oh, good. Well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Also, please bear in mind as well, in the kind of following slides, as we recommend things, we're not kind of saying that you need to do it like 100% of the time. We all know that's not quite possible. It's about quality interaction, and sometimes, just 10 minutes of that really quality, face-to-face eye contact with a child where your attention is just on them, a quality interaction like that can sometimes be sufficient. Yeah, so it's a kind of think about it from a qualitative kind of perspective, rather than, oh, I need to be around them, I need to do this like all the time, because that's just stressful for you, and it's not quite sustainable in the long run. Yeah, so kind of slowly build up with quality interactions, and then over time it gets easier and you can kind of sustain it for longer.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we go into a little bit more around like ages and stages and what that means. So from birth to 18 months, this is the kind of time where they are most reliant on you, because for things like, eating, sleeping, a lot of that, they need the support from mom and dad. And they also live in a very emotional world because they don't have the capacity to speak at that time. Their only form of connection is, or rather the only way they can express how they're feeling and what they need is through crying. So it's a period of a lot of trial and error for many parents, because baby obviously has needs, but can't quite communicate them to you, can't quite tell you, I'm hungry, mom, I want a bottle. They just cry. And mom basically has to kind of go through the motions as to, okay, what's happening here? Does my child need a diaper change? Does do they need a bottle? Do they just want to be cuddled? Yeah, and I say mom here, but it's really mom and dad. It's just acknowledging that a lot of the early months, moms tend to be the main caregivers. But it's the same. Mom and dad both need to kind of work it out what the child needs. In fact, it's all the more important that dads do provide that support, because it can be very stressful for mom, because a lot of moms kind of, with maternity leave and even now with the COVID situation, it can be quite isolating. You're coming away, especially for like working moms, coming away from, work-based social interactions to maybe being at home a lot of the time with baby. That's huge adjustments that need to be made. And, it's really good for parents at this stage to really kind of recognize what your signs are when you're not when you're feeling like things are getting quite overwhelming, and putting in place supports for yourself.
Yeah. It can, like, especially with this, when your child's born, like, you lose a lot of sleep as a parent too.
Yes.
And with a lot of crying from the child, it can get really stressful, I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially first-time moms trying to figure out, what does this cry mean? Is it normal for my child to be waking up at, X number of times in the night, things like that. It's a learning curve. And every child is different. So recognizing that and knowing, even with families where there are multiple children, one child may sleep through the night, be absolutely fantastic, no crying, no nothing. Next child might come along and there's a lot more crying, there's a lot more, so going easy on yourself, taking things one step at a time, and reaching out for support when when you need it, recognizing when you need support. That's really important in the early months. But during this kind of period, in terms of supporting a child, just picking them up, holding baby up close to you, hugging them, that physical affection, and maintaining eye contact with your baby, that's the way they're gonna start learning new things around them. Learning that you love them and you're gonna be there for them every time, and that the world around them in general is safe. That's what's most important at this stage of their life. And then we get to 18 months to 3 years. This is the period of the infamous toddler tantrums, terrible twos as they call it. And that's as kind of what we mentioned earlier with the brain development. At this stage of their life, they are both wanting to be independent and be able to do things by themselves and develop a sense of identity, but at the same time are very emotions driven. So they, when they try and do things, but things may not go the way they would like it to, there's more difficulty in terms of understanding why that's so. And so for them, it's, I really want something, but I can't do it. It's strong emotions, it gets quite overwhelming. And so they express it in the form of a tantrum, in the form of a meltdown. And what's really helpful for children at this age is kind of walking through that with them, providing them with that rational thought process, acknowledging that, it's quite upsetting that they want to do certain things but are not quite able to do it, and supporting them through the emotional regulation process. That it's okay to feel upset. How can you express yourself then in a different way? And it's also important at this stage of development to let them try new things themselves, and they will want to try new things. They will want to kind of do, things on their own. I can feed myself, I can dress myself, I can pick my own clothes myself, and you could end up with fairly odd examples that may not exactly be appropriate. But
I've had that happen when kids just want to dress themselves.
Yeah, you end up with, I don't know, a sparkly dress on the top and tights underneath, and that's perfectly normal. It's reflective of where they're at in their stage and wanting to kind of be able to do things independently. If they're not going out to childcare, or if it's just a day at home, let them try it. And it's a good way for them to be able to kind of try new things and really develop some of those fine motor skills as well, in being able to do things by themselves. Okay. And at this age as well, there'll be days where it feels like you're repeating instructions over and over again around things like, okay, we eat with a spoon, or we sit at the table, things like that. And again, that's kind of where it's, because it's emotion driven and less of that rational thought process as to, okay, these are the steps I need to follow. So it can feel very repetitive and they can make mistakes over and over again. They're not doing this deliberately to make your life hard. This is just where they are at in their age and stage of development. So what we would really recommend, and it also applies to other stages in their life, before responding to the behaviors, just take a deep breath, count to 4, count to 5, and then respond to them. instead of the because that helps to kind of keep calm and be respond in a way that's calm and letting them know, hey, it's okay that you're asking these questions. It's okay to make mistakes. This is how else we can respond. We can work around the situation. Alright.
I want to ask something with the related slide, the previous one.
Yep.
So like with that age group for 18 to 3 years, is it a good time to introduce a schedule or a structure format? Like this is the time for your dinner and this is the dressing time or this is the TV screen time and all that. So is it a good time to start it?
Definitely. It's always good to kind of start some of these things young, and we'll talk a little bit more in the later slide as well. But children really, really like structure. They really like routine. So having things like routine charts is very helpful. And keeping it simple, keeping it at the age they're at. And it's also possible to even introduce things like chores, because it's 2 to 3 years old, they can start helping around the house. Of course, they'll probably need a lot more guidance, a lot more structure from yourself, but it can be a really good bonding activity while also kind of starting to get them into the routine of following a chart, around following, I guess, steps and processes. So yeah, definitely a good time to start.
Okay, thank you.
No problems. Okay, and then we go to the 3 to 6 years. So if you remember kind of the left-right development, this is the time where there's a lot of development happening around language. And so you get a lot of the why and the how, what are we having for dinner? Why are we having that? Why are we eating at this time? Why are you putting this? There's just non-stop whys, and that's because that's the time of development where this is the part of the brain that's developing really rapidly. So at this stage, they're still needing to practice a lot of new skills, but they have a lot more physical and language capabilities to do things independently. So let them try, doing things on their own if they, to the best of their ability. Step in, of course, to supervise if, things are, for example, if they're cooking or trying to make a simple meal and maybe need to use a knife or scissors, a pair of scissors. So kind of providing them with that supervision to do it, or taking over and doing those tasks that they may need the assistance, but then kind of handing the reins back to them and letting them try it for themselves. This will take a lot of patience for families because understand, families are busy. There's always a lot of things happening. So pick your times. If they're trying to explore new things, don't do it at a time when you're getting ready to leave the house for childcare or to school or things like that. Do it on weekends, for example, where you have a little bit more time and space for them to to kind of guide them through the process. Oh, sorry, I saw a hand raised up there.
Jolene, I want to ask, I'm studying diploma in childcare and studied that's 3 to 5 years that kids ask average is 73 questions in a day.
Oh wow!
Is the same for the 5 to 6 years, or is that number is gaining?
It really depends. If they're home with you, it could be more. If they're at school, if they're at childcare, it might be a little bit different, the experience.
No, he's not going anywhere. He's staying with home and...
Yeah, well, with COVID, I think everyone's at home at the moment. But yeah, definitely the 3 to 5, you see a lot more. 5 to 6, especially these days with like technology, sometimes kids are a little bit more able to find out that information on their own. But yeah, generally you do see a lot of questions. Look, I've even heard people say it's like living with your mother-in-law. So, yeah, it's also being patient with them. Sometimes part of it is that wanting to know new things. Sometimes part of it is that wanting that connection, and just sparing 5 minutes to kind of really look at them and maintaining the eye contact with them and answering those questions. However, I guess even if it's just a simple, okay, this is what we're having for dinner, why? Or because this other person likes it, or why do we need to go out, or why do we not go out, things like that. Just sparing them that time to answer those questions. That's part of the quality interactions that we're talking about. And if you're busy, if you really have a lot of things to do and can't be answering all those questions, which is fully understandable, it's perfectly fine to tell them, mom's busy now, mom's busy at the moment, give me 5 minutes, give me 10 minutes, let me finish this task and let's have that chat. That's perfectly fine.
That's so important. I think that's also like teaching kids boundaries, right? That you can't
That's
just
right.
ask whenever you want. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, learning to say no to them is part of this process as well. And letting them know that, it's, we all have our times when we need time to ourselves. Even if, I've heard a lot of families tell me that, I can't take time for myself. My 5-year-old is there, and they just, my 2-year, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, and they're full on. They ask a lot of questions, even when I'm there sitting down drinking my cup of tea. He's just there, they're kind of going, mommy, mommy, mommy. And so kind of telling them, okay, I'm just going to have this cup of tea. When I'm done, then let's talk about, what you're asking. Of course, if it's something urgent, if it's something that pertains to potentially safety, then respond accordingly. But if it's things like, oh, mommy, I want to play with this toy, mommy, I want this, I want that, it's perfectly fine to just say, stop, I'm going to have my cup of tea, have my time, 10 minutes, I'll be with you. Yeah. Okay. And at this stage, it's also good for them to be able to kind of participate in things like, okay, what would we like for dinner tonight? Of course, not giving them free rein, give them some structure in terms of options, like we can have this, this or that. What would you like? It helps them with, kind of that sense of being a part of the family and having a say in the decision-making process. So that helps them develop those skills as well. Okay. So, and then we come to the 6 to 10 years. At this age, so development between both sides of the brain starts to even out. And children are better able to manage their feelings, better able to make decisions. So at this stage, the rational kind of the cortex is also a little bit more developed. So they are more able to do the rational thinking, be able to understand, actions and consequences for behaviors. And if you kind of tell them, I'm saying no because, we're going to have, for example, if they want to go out and play, but you're already getting ready for a family event, you've kind of step them through the process as to why, they're better able to kind of understand that, as compared to the younger years when it's, well, no, I just want to play. You're not letting me have fun. And therefore, I'm going to have a meltdown because that's what they want. And it's the emotion of being denied something. Whereas at the 6 to 10 years of age, you kind of explain to them why, they're better able to kind of understand that. Of course, at the same time, not going into kind of lengthy discussions and rationalizations with them. Just keep it short and sweet. We're gonna have, we're gonna have a family gathering. We're gonna have dinner soon. That's why we can't go out and play. But if you would like, we can do this later on. At this age, it's also a good time to start kind of problem solving, supporting your child with problem solving, so that they're better able to kind of handle difficult situations on their own. So, kind of, and it's also about not, I guess it's also not saying that you have to do it all the time, but when your child comes to you with a problem and you have the time and capacity to kind of step them through, okay, you know, this is what you're coming to me with, what do you think we can do, and kind of letting them problem solve. If you have the time and capacity to do that, this is a good time to start some of the processes. So you know, things like coming to you because they've had a fight with their sibling around sharing of toys. You know, kind of walking to them, you know, yes, I know you're feeling upset because your sibling has taken your toy. What do you think we could do? And letting them come up with solutions. You know, at the 6-year mark, may still require you to give them options. Like maybe we can, you know, share first. You can have it for 10 minutes, and then your sibling can have it for the next 10 minutes, or you know, or maybe, you know, is there another game that you would like to play, or another toy that you could play with? So giving them those structured options may still be required, but it's teaching them to look at kind of ways to solve their problems instead of looking at you for answers to do so. Socialization at this age is also very important for them to pick up kind of skills around social interaction with their peers, and to, you know, pick up social cues and emotional cues from their peers as well. Okay. Yeah. Throughout all the ages, regardless of whether or not, you know, they're in the emotional kind of stage of their thinking or whether they're at the rational stage, it's always important to, you know, acknowledge if they've, or kind of talk to them about things that they do not do right. You know, for example, if they are raising their voices at, you know, their siblings or even at the parents when things do not go their way, you know, to call them out on that and to provide them structure and guidance around how they could respond. You know, we don't raise our voices. Is there, what language can we use instead? Or we need to keep our inside voices, acknowledging their emotions. But at the same time, you know, if they do good things, if they try new things, regardless of the outcome, also be acknowledging their attempts at, you know, helping out around the home, for example, or, you know, if they've done something positive, to kind of acknowledge those efforts as well. So it's kind of giving both the good and the bad equal attention. It's kind of what we were talking about earlier. So kind of, you know, getting them to kind of do things. So from 2 to 3 years, children can already start helping around the home. This is kind of what we have here is just a little bit of a guide as to what they can do around the home. At different ages, the amount of support you need to provide will be different. And, you know, as they grow older, you know, it's a good way of you being able to have some time to do things or free up time for yourself, because, you know, parents don't have to and shouldn't have to do everything for your children, especially once they reach the, you know, 6 to 8, 9 to 11 years old. And, you know, especially with some of these tasks, you know, it may require more than one person to do it. So you could say, okay, you're going to help me with it. And this could be a good way of bonding and having time with your children one-on-one as well for that quality interaction. And it's also giving them a sense of helping them with a sense of belonging, like we are kind of participating in what we need as a household. Okay. So visual charts, you know, so the main thing across the ages is for parents to maintain consistency in terms of routines and boundaries and guidance for your children. At the same time, kind of repeating yourself over and over again can be very frustrating. You know, or we wake up at this time, we're going to have breakfast next, and we're going to do this, you know, every day going through that can be quite frustrating. So kind of having visual charts is a good way of providing a cue for them. And it can be a way of involving them in the decision-making process and learning about responsibilities. So, you know, what we would really recommend when you're doing a visual chart, involve your children in the process, you know, whether even if it's things like picking out the color of what the wording should be, or, you know, having them draw out, for example, if it's time to wake up, having them draw out what waking up looks like, maybe a bed or, you know, an alarm clock. So they are involved in that process, they'll be more willing to engage in it. And you know, it's really good across the ages, you know, and it can be adapted according to where they're at their stage and what their day looks like. You know, for younger children, it could be, you know, bedtime. This is what we do at bedtime. For the children who are going to school or going to childcare, it could be a morning routine as to, you know, what we do to get ready for the day before we leave for childcare. And kind of having this structure at the same time also makes things a little bit easier for parents in terms of, you know, what's coming next, you know, kind of scrambling around, you know, you kind of prepared yourself. Therefore, your children kind of recognized it and they realize, okay, because children kind of pick up on parents' emotions. If you're flustered, especially at times like mornings and nights, if you're flustered, they're going to pick up on it. And you're probably going to see a lot more tantrums, a lot more behaviors. But if kind of you have a structure in place, you've got a chart, you kind of know what's coming, then they're going to pick up on that as well. And they'll be generally a lot more settled. That's it. Whenever you're introducing something new in the home, whether it's visual charts or having them, you know, start with a new chore or a new kind of routine, it's always it will take a few tries, and it will require quite a lot of patience and time. So pick your moments to try something new. Don't try it at a time when you're feeling really, really stressed or, you know, there's a lot happening. You know, and, you know, if it takes a few tries, that's perfectly fine. The thing about it is kind of that perseverance. And to kind of give it a few goals. Okay. So yeah, main thing, go easy on yourself. You know, when things don't go too well, that's okay. Take a deep breath, try again. Especially with all the stresses that's happening at the moment, parental self-care is really, really important for any, in terms of responding to your children and their behaviors and trying to put things in place to kind of guide them around that. Yeah,
Definitely. Thank you. So are you done with the presentation? We can do Q&A or?
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you want to unshare your screen if that's okay?
I will do that once I figure out how to.
Oh, good.
There we go. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I really like that. That was really good. All right, a couple of questions. So Namrata said that her 5-year-old wants to do everything all the time and it's a bit tough. And what if they don't listen? And obviously if they're throwing tantrums all the time, like how do you explain to them, like, is it fine to let them cry as well? Like,
it depends on what it is. Pick your battles. You know, if it's something like, you know, her wanting to eat by herself, you know, 5 years old, you're probably going to see a mess. But you know, if you say, okay, you can do that, but then when it comes to cleaning up afterwards, you might need some support with that. So kind of letting her do some things on her own, and then and telling her why. At 5 years old, you should kind of, if keeping it short and simple, you know, we can't do that because, for example, you can't reach up to the sink, or this is dangerous. How about you do something else instead? Offering them alternatives normally works well. So redirecting them is normally a strategy that helps a lot in these situations. Yeah,
I think definitely, like, at that stage, if you do, like you said, give them options, it allows them to think more clearly as well. Be like, oh yeah, that's a new perspective, like I should consider that. Yeah.
And these kind of situations as well, natural consequences are normally very helpful. For example, you know, you want to go out and she's very insistent that she wants to go out in a specific set of clothing and doesn't want to wear a jacket, for example. Natural consequence, just put the jacket in your bag, let her do it. When she gets cold, she's going to come back to you and say, okay, now I see why you're wanting me to do that.
Yeah.
So letting them learn some of these things
On their own, yeah.
is okay.
Yeah, no, I think you have a good point. I think why some of these things they're quite common in Indian upbringing, you know, where you just let your child cry, like, I'm not going to listen to you. And that's happened. It's happened with me. My mom used to do that. She'll be like, you know what, you can cry. I'm not going to listen to you. Is that okay? Like, to what extent could you do that, I guess?
It really depends on the situation. What, especially at the younger age, a lot of the times they're crying, you know, and they continue to cry because, again, it's emotion driven and they need the support with actually regulating that emotion. So I can see one of the questions is, you know, whether if a toddler is having tantrums and, you know, is it fine to let them cry? Toddlers will need that support with the emotional regulation, you know, but at the same time, explaining things to them isn't going to work because they're pretty much in meltdown stage. So first thing is pretty much to support them with calming down, and whether that's giving them a hug, you know, okay, I can see that you're really upset. Would you like to kind of sit down quietly for a little bit? And, you know, kind of supporting them through that process. And then once they're calm, then kind of talk through it with them. Okay, why were you upset? You know, they might say, oh, because I wanted to play for another 5 minutes. Why was I not allowed to? I said, okay, you want to play for another 5 minutes? That's fine. Maybe you can tell mom, maybe you can tell us, you know, use your words. Okay, we'll play for 5 minutes and then you need to pack up. So kind of stepping them through that process. You know, of course, that doesn't mean, you know, let them have whatever they want. You know, if it's with some things, there needs to be firm boundaries around some of it. For example, if it's their bedtime and they are constantly throwing tantrums because they don't want to stop playing, it might be kind of prepping before then. That's where some of those visual charts will be really helpful. You know, your bedtime is at this time. When it's this time, we do need to go to sleep. And it might be setting up a routine so that, you know, before that happens, you're giving them that 5 minute cue. Okay, 5 more minutes and then we need to pack up. And if they throw a tantrum, you've got that 5 minutes to kind of manage that, 5-10 minutes to manage that. Yeah.
And like that, where that positive reinforcement comes, so it's like if they go to bed on time for the entire weeknight, on Friday you can have an extra 10 minutes to play.
Yeah, precisely. So, you know, having the negative and the positive.
No, I agree. Okay, so I'll come back to yours, Neeti. I'll ask Parul. So what is the right strategy for teaching about writing, if you have any pointers for that?
I wouldn't say there's kind of a strategy. Again, it depends on your child's age. So 3 years old, giving them opportunities to just kind of exercise with, you know, giving them drawing, letting them draw, and you know, there are guidebooks that you can get. Of course, they might not necessarily get it right the first time, but, you know, just opportunities to use a pen and practice generally is headed in the right direction.
Yeah,
they may need guidance around sticking to the paper.
Yeah, he's writing like letters and alphabets. He's writing. He writes A to M in the English alphabets and in numbers we are teaching. But when I start teach, say, okay, let's do with mommy. So writing, he says, no, I don't want to write with you. He will do everything with me, like listening rhymes, playing and everything. But in writing, he says, no, I don't want to write with you. I just go away.
That's not unusual. So maybe tell him, okay, you're right, and then maybe show me what you've done later,
Yeah.
and then kind of make it into a little bit more of a.
I'll do, but he says, no, you're hurting me. I'm saying, we are playing, and then we are that's never. But
think
he's making
you
up
might be
noise,
a
like
bit
you
too
know that the
strict
kids
on
are
him.
make up stories and like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might be a bit too strict on him, Paru. Like, I think writing could have made him feel very independent. Like, oh, this is me. I do this on my own. Look at me. I'm such a big boy kind of situation as well. Yeah.
Does he recognize letters already? Like, he's able to
Yeah.
write the alphabet? Maybe a way of doing it is involving him with the other household tasks. For example, coming to him and saying, hey, I'm going to go shopping. Would you like to help me write out the shopping list? And then kind of spelling it out to him. Okay, I think we need apples, for example. And then you spell it out for him, and then he's writing it down. So it's like, I'm helping mom.
He know, like he's just starting up. Last couple of months he started just writing how to write the letters.
Yeah,
so
of course it's not like a formal, but it's that kind of making it into a, okay, you're a big boy and you can help with us. That's what they kind of like, when actually it's maybe you trying to kind of look at whether or not he's writing okay or not. So it's just involving him in that process, like, okay, I'm helping with things around the house. Sometimes that's what they want.
Yeah, and I think, Parul, in your situation, I think it's just to elaborate on what Jolene said. It's important to recognize him actually doing it. Doesn't matter if it's right or not.
Yeah.
And I think
that's oh, you did a good job. This looks good.
Yeah. And that's and I'm not saying it's you, but I do notice that in a lot of Indian moms as well. They'll be like, no, you didn't do this right. Like, you need to do it this way. But it's just about that acknowledgement of, you did such a good job. Thanks for that. But I mean, if they wrote B the wrong way, it's okay, but it will encourage them to do it again. But then that way you can show it slowly. Yeah.
I just like a sharing an idea. Jenny, she will turn 3, so I have like a slate. So like those slates where you have to write it down. So it's available at Kmart. So what it does is, like, if you press A into it, and on the writing mode, it show you on the screen that how A is written.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So like they can just copy it. They are doing it by themselves. They are just seeing it and copying it. It can give them more encouragement. It will sort it out your issue as well, that this is the right way, and the right way they are doing it, but by themselves.
Good. Maybe Niti, send a link to Parul, like the.
Oh, I can send it.
Yeah, and then.
Yeah, and it has like all the spellings and everything, and it gives you the pictures as well. Like, this is how the apple looks. Yeah. I'll send you the link.
I'm doing on my phone. It's like alphabets written, and he is tracing by himself. He loves to do. I'm doing on my phone. Yeah. He's doing on my phone.
Yeah, but like with that one, because it has like a screen on the above little bit.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a big whiteboard thing where they can write it. So eventually they're just copying on the same screen, because it's my perception. I don't give her like more screen on mobile or anything. Yeah, it's like my thing. I don't say it's a right or wrong, but it's up to you. Yeah. And that's like only $15 or $20 one. Yeah.
I mean, if it's working for you, then why not? Like, anything that you think works, that's appropriate, sure.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good idea, Neeti. Can you please send me the link?
Yeah. Sure. And you can like every time you can give the phone as well to him.
All right, I just have one more question. So Neeta's just asking, what's the difference between a normal childcare and what's that word, Neeti?
The Montessori, is it?
Yeah, the Montessori.
This is actually a question I'm not equipped to answer. I think it really depends on your child and how you feel about the childcare center or the Montessori. They normally have open days post-COVID. Maybe go and actually kind of get a feel of the place, the educator, and whether or not you feel like that's a good
I actually asked this question because when I was she already goes to a childcare center since she's 11 months old, because I was a working mom.
Yeah.
So it's actually, I asked this because when you mentioned that for the reward thing, so I read it in the Montessori style. they don't say it like rewarded every time. Like they just say that every time you're like, if your kid had finished their dinner or maybe put their clothes in the laundry, don't say every time that it's a good job, that good job you did this. It's a very good thing.
Yeah.
Yes, don't give those positive. But I feel it. She feel encouraged if I say those words.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. Is that the right way to do it? Like the Montessori style, or just the normal one which they're saying, that reward thing?
It's a fine balance. You know, it's again, it's not about quantity.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about, everything they do right, because your children are going to get quite a lot of things right, along with
Yeah.
quite a few, across the day. It's not about noticing every single one of them. It's about, I guess, especially if you're trying to change something or you put something new in place, then definitely note that behavior. For example, if they are throwing blocks at their siblings whenever they're feeling, as a way of saying, I don't want to play with you, or, this is mine, you can't play with it, and then, they're throwing. And that's the behavior specifically that you want to address. And that's what you've put in place around like a routine chart, or, in terms of a visual chart. Like if how many days without throwing something at your sibling, for example, then that's something you really want to notice. When they throw it, you notice the bad. When they don't, thank you for not, this was behavior. So you kind of specify what you saw that they did instead. Thank you for doing that. Or that was good, for example.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
So,
I'm sharing my own strategy, which is I'm doing. My son sometimes get frustrated and throwing things. Okay, you throw. Mama will go office and give you all the toys to the office, and you never get the toys and everything. He says, "No, Mama, I'm not throwing." And he put like a nice boy, and he never be a
He
like
starts doing that.
7 times before throwing the things and everything.
yeah. I would caution though, especially as your child gets older, not to give consequences that are quite big, that you may not be 100% able to kind of put in place. Because if you do need to put a consequence in place, you need to be able to follow through. And if a consequence is very big for a small kind of behavior, that could lead to disproportionate, when the behaviors do get bigger, how much bigger can you go?
Yeah.
So try and keep it like, if it's throwing something on the ground, for example, then that thing in particular maybe gets taken away from them for maybe a few days. So not kind of, then you get all your toys taken away for a certain amount of time. Then, as the behavior grows, how many more toys can you take away, kind of feeling to it. Yeah.
I do find that if you do make such big consequences, like Jolene said, like I feel like the child would pick up on that, and they'll be like, "Oh, you're not actually going to do that, so I'm not going to believe you anymore." So
either you get that, or the behavior just escalates even more. Yeah. Or basically, you know what? I'm gonna have everything taken away from me anyway. I'm just gonna act up. So. So if you keep it specific to the activity, that's normally where you see the best results.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, what else was there? Just some comments Namrata made that 2 of your children cry all the time, tantrums all the time. How old are they, Namrata? I know you joined a bit later. Oh, I can't hear you. Maybe just type it, I think, from your mic.
You able to hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, one is 5 years old and another one is 1 year old. And actually, after this second one, my elder one started becoming more, what I can say, I think he needs attention. I understand that absolutely, but sometimes it's creating me a very bad headache because both of them are crying alternatively. Once little one, then it's the turn of the elder one, then the little one, then turn of the elder one. Oh, it's too much for me now.
Yeah. It's a lot, especially the age group as well.
Yeah.
I don't
And
know how to handle this.
yeah, it's tricky because sometimes it's what they see. Like, okay, when my younger sibling cries, that's where they get their attention, and therefore that's how I need to get attention. If
Yes.
I want attention, that's what I need to do.
Hmm.
So what you're saying, very common, especially with children when there's an age difference like that. Very, very common. I guess it's sitting down with your 5-year-old, talking to him. Okay, it's because what can you do that maybe your 1-year-old cannot do? Getting your 5-year-old to kind of acknowledge these differences of what he or she is able to do and what your other child can't. And then kind of working out, okay, mommy still loves you very much. Want to be able to spend some time with you, and maybe working out specific times. For example, before bedtime is normally a good one. Let's sit down together and read together, for example. And then that time is devoted to just you and your 5-year-old. So it's that quality interaction. Yeah.
When I hug my elder one, my little one just start crying badly and jumps in between and pushes him back that you go away from mama.
So then it's telling your 1-year-old, actually, no, this is my time with your sibling. Yeah.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of negotiation. And until they get used to that is what you're going to see. But it's also about putting boundaries in place. Yes, you're younger, but your older sibling needs attention as well. Mom's got things that she needs to do, and in the long run it will apply to things like when you're busy and you want to do your own things.
Yeah.
Not having your 1-year-old kind of mommy and kind of wanting that. It's not wrong.
Yes.
That's what children do. So it's putting in place boundaries to let them know, I'm going to be there for you, I love you very much, but I need I need time to do other things as well. And maybe again picking your battles around times. For example, your 1-year-old might need to have naps. That nap time is when you really do something quite specific with your 5-year-old, more being deliberate about doing an activity with your 5-year-old.
Yeah.
When both of them are coming to you, whether it's needing to redirect one to a different activity. Because sometimes what children may need is assistance with setting up new play, or assistance with starting a new activity. And so it's maybe giving them that option, letting them start with that, and then you can redirect your attention to the other child who needs, depending on what the needs are at the time.
Yeah.
A lot of patience for sure, but you'll get through it. Okay. And look, so there are a lot of, I'm not sure how well versed all of you are, but there are a lot of like studies and stuff that do show that putting in boundaries as a parent is very beneficial for your child development, like for your children's development. And I know that it's really selfish to think that, but it's not. It's completely okay. Like, don't feel bad or guilty that I'm taking 5 minutes out to do something for myself, because that will help you calm down, clear your head, and then go and negotiate with your kids. Yeah.
How I like to kind of phrase it is, think of it as, you having a glass of water. And if you're giving and giving and giving to your child, what are you living for yourself? And you can't, and you can't provide care and support if you're running on empty. You can't give if you've got nothing left to give. So take those times to yourself to replenish your glass. So, because that will help you in the longer term to be able to support your children. Yeah.
Thank you. All right.